Hello and welcome to Spiritually Wired. I've got a fun episode for you today because this episode was recorded in front of a live studio audience. It is with my dear friend Marsha Vanwynsberghe, who is an NLP trainer, an author, a speaker, a podcaster, a boutique publisher. And Marsha was actually a guest on this podcast before, one of the most popular downloaded episodes on this podcast. I'm going to link to that previous episode. But this conversation was a bit different. We talked about the unsexy part of doing, quote, the work. We talk about your bounce back rate, about also the importance of not being attached to your emotions. It's just this real raw conversation. And also we answer questions from the audience. So I really hope that you enjoy this episode. Hi, I'm Renée Walker, a mindset mentor, speaker, and lover of all things spiritual. I believe that at our core, we are all spiritually wired for love, peace, success, and abundance. Here on the podcast, we're diving into mindset, wellness, and business, but always through a spiritual lens. Let's just say we're going deep, but we're keeping it light. So let's elevate your life from the inside out, one conversation at a time. Welcome to Spiritually Wired.
Okay, are we ready? You and I, we've had a.
Well, I love how you said about like 15 times how much you guys planned the podcast. I'm like, you and I have not planned the podcast. I'm in the back thinking, maybe we should have planned the podcast.
I did up here. It's up here. It's right here.
We spent a lot of time together.
We do spend a lot of time together. We do. And I mean, we actually chatted the other day. And I think one of the things that came up for me, and you and I have had like both episodes, we both recorded on each other's shows, great episodes, honestly, and a number of downloads. So I love this piece of it. And I feel like Renée has been somebody who has really helped me to open up more of my spiritual side. And something that's taken me a long time to connect to be completely honest, yet I can look back and see that it's been there all along. And even so much so that I joined her membership, with a little plug, but Spiritually Wired membership, because I serve a lot of women. Mm-hmm. And I needed to serve me. That was something, and I'm like, okay, Marsha, you have got to pour back into you. And so that's been such a beautiful way for me to kick off the week. So I love how our paths have crossed and just the conversations that we get to have. And so one of the things that I feel would be beautiful to share is to talk a little bit about, like, what does the work look like? The unsexy work that people, I mean, you might look up here and think, okay, they're like, they've got their own shows, they've done these things. Like, I know you were somebody who looked at having a podcast before you did. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
It took 4 years, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So just to put in perspective, right? Like, so it looks like it just happened. It doesn't. But there's definitely, like, in order to be a grounded spiritual person who can serve others, there has to be some things, and I'm not just talking rituals, I'm talking about, like, how do you anchor in on the things that you need to do on a regular basis? Like, they aren't sexy. Like, doing the work on a regular basis is not sexy work, but how do you what do you do for you that helps you to stay grounded?
Okay. I do feel that there is a misunderstanding when it comes to the work, because a lot of what we see is the outcome. So we're always celebrating the podcast launch, we're celebrating these things, and this is all great, but that is the outcome of it. When really there was so much that happened sort of leading to it. And that's the part that's the unsexy part. That's the part that's not shown on Instagram, is the times when you're like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? You know, I just went through a tougher period, and it's interesting. I don't know how many times I'm like, well, I sure am not doing a selfie in this moment. And those are the moments really that we all go through that we don't share enough of. And so to me, part of this work that's been so transformational in terms of surrounding myself or being part of some coaching groups, which is how I started my journey like 20 years ago was just being able to be in rooms with women where we weren't pretending. We weren't pretending that we had it all together. We were very honest about messing up as parents and the time that you screamed and yelled and you felt awful about it, but it was just being human. And so to me, the more we open up the conversations, I think like this is so important to normalize it. But going back to the unsexy part of it, is it's a willingness to experience every emotion. And so I feel like in order for us to be able to experience the joy and the highs, there needs to be a willingness to experience the lows as well. And that's the part that's not fun.
It's not.
Very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And we just always want to stay in the high part, which is lovely to be in. And it's not about, staying in those low moments, but there needs to be a willingness to feel them.
I love that you shared that, because I feel, again, we don't always share the hard days. And I do try hard to be real when I show up and share. And it's always a fine line of like, I'm not complaining, right? But it is part of life. I often use the phrase like contraction, right? Like I've got to be able to feel safe in contraction and expansion. We all want expansion. We want all things to work out. We want all things to, whether it's clients, business, abundance, whatever it is, we want it to work out in this expansion. But we have to be comfortable in the contraction, because in order to get here, you're going to have a lot of days where that contraction feels like, oh, the emotions are hard. It's heavy. Life is going wrong. There's challenges that are happening. It's all part of it. It actually goes together. And so, again, back to the stories, not making that mean something about us. It's part of the journey. And when those times happen for me, sometimes I stop, and I don't personally agree with this phrase, but this is just, again, my opinion, that this is happening for you. Because I feel like, especially if you're somebody who is walking through a difficult time, and I was for a long time, and people would say, this is happening for you. And I'm like, that is like one of the most toxic things to say to somebody who's in it. Like, it's a horrible thing to say. But I ask myself, when that happens now, it's like, what is this teaching me? Like, what am I here to learn? And that always helps to flip that perspective. And we can feel all those emotions. And we're going to have times in our life where, we're walking through difficult things. I'd actually be worried if we weren't feeling it at that time. I think it's really bad to be a toxic, positive culture too. I don't think that that's right either. So a lot of this work on a daily basis can look unsexy. It really can. But I love that we're here having these kinds of real conversations, right? This is what it looks like.
Absolutely. You move through a certain fear by being willing to experience the fear is how you're going to move through it. And so to me, when we focus on the work, the more that we're present with what is, the more that we have an opportunity to detach ourselves from whatever the emotion is. Now we're becoming the witness, the observer, which is what our meditation practice teaches us, is to actually be with what is, not identifying with it. So you're having the experience of fear, you're not the fear itself. You're having an experience of anxiety versus being the anxiety. It's very different. And to me also, like, the more we are willing to experience or to be with maybe the uncomfortable emotions that show up, the more we also are able to experience the good ones. So it broadens our capacity to experience and to be present. And we are living in a world where it is so easy to tune out, to avoid, to distract ourselves, to yes, we're living life, but maybe we're also dimming the not so good things. We're also dimming the light at the same time.
Yeah, you've hit on something there, because we are so exposed to, it's easy to go down rabbit holes, whether it's your phone, news, other people's opinions, and then you lose track of like who you are, what you want to do, what you want to surround yourself with. And I think the more we can appreciate like how important it is to have beautiful boundaries in place, like you and I have spoken a couple times, like it's like even with our closest people in our life, I'm not going to name his name, but the closest people in our life, we love them dearly, but there are times it's like, ooh, that one's not mine to carry. Like I can support you and I'm here, but I can't take it on. And it's very different things, right? It's that's the piece of his understanding. And if I can share like one, and if you've listened to me before, you've like, I've already heard this, and that's okay, because we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. 80 to 90% are repeated every single day, and 90% of those are negative. We're literally 90% of our thoughts are negative on repeat every single day. 60 to 80,000 thoughts is like reading 2 books in a day. Your brain is full of 2 books of thoughts a day, and 90% of them are negative. That is before the rest of the world gets you. So if there was ever a piece to know that, like, the unsexy work of how you take care of yourself, do you see how important it is? It is so important. That is before the rest of the world gets you. And when you do that, you're going to have, like, it's an ebb and flow, right? It's not like this. It's not like that. The late days aren't like that. You're going to have the up and down days. But one of the things Renee and I spoke a lot about was this bounce back rate. And I think this is really important. It's the sense like you're going to have those days where it feels like, I feel like I've been down here forever. And it hasn't, but it feels like it. But the bounce back rate changes because you're doing the unsexy work on a regular basis to support yourself. So I just want to talk a little bit about that bounce back rate.
Yeah, I think that the recovery is one of the greatest gifts. Like when people say, like, what's the tangible difference in your life since you started doing the work? That's the tangible difference. There are still periods of contraction and there's still periods of expansion. So we're not meant to always live here. We're meant to experience life and to the ups and the downs. But the biggest difference on a personal level that I can share has just been that the contraction phases are not as long. Something could set me off, and then I could easily stay in that space for a much longer time. Whereas now, with the awareness, when we're showing up and cultivating that present moment awareness, we're more practicing the detachment from what's happening. We have an opportunity to bounce back from it differently, because there's a different attachment. Like from a spiritual perspective, one of the greatest lessons is non-attachment. So part of where we cause so much of our own suffering is that we're attached to feeling this joy and this peace and this love, and that's all wonderful. And yes, they are beautiful intentions to have. But the more attached we are to them, then the more we are in some ways disconnecting from it. So in practicing non-attachment, it's also non-attachment from it all too. It also means that we're not as attached to the periods of contraction.
Oh, I think the not being attached is such a valuable lesson. Took
Not
me a
easy.
long time to learn. Not sexy, like a long time to learn is not being attached. And now I even catch myself when I feel like, oh my God, I failed at that, or I didn't do it. I'm like, wait, I'm attached to it. Like that's an attachment. And when it's an attachment, it's like a meaning making. Like now I'm making it mean something about me. And honestly, we often think I can't start until I have the whole thing planned out and all the steps. And then I often say to people, it's like go back in your life. Where did something work out exactly every single step that you made and plan that you had in the way? It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You do have to move, right? You do have to move.
And I'd say that most of the time when you look back, and this is always
hindsight.
In hindsight, so never sort of in the moment, but most of the time you can look at those times when it didn't work out and you're like, oh, of course, it needed to happen this way. So it does require that shift in perspective. Coming back to the unsexy part though, what I wanted to maybe add to that is that, so I'm huge on rituals because I do believe that the way that you begin your day, the way that you end your day, they support you. But the unsexy part is at 2:00 in the afternoon. It's in the moments when you're maybe having an argument with someone in your life, or it's when you're in the trenches that you catch yourself and you witness and you notice whatever it is that's showing up for you, that you then have the opportunity to look at it and to choose. And that's where your power comes from, is I can't control anything outside of me. It would be nice, but we all know we can't control it. We can only control how we show up to it, how we react to it And that to me is part of really what being in our power is recognizing that we have the choice in how we're going to respond, how we're going to show up to whatever life throws at us.
Yeah, you hit the word there that I wanted to come back to is part of like the unsexy work is being able to pour into yourself on a regular basis. I believe 100% in rituals. I have built a toolbox of rituals that changes on a regular basis. And sometimes I need more of the tools and sometimes I'm in a good spot, but the toolbox is there. I used to be such a rigid, like my morning routine was like ridiculously long because it was so all the things you're supposed to do, right? Like everything, God forbid, you don't journal at that time, you're screwed. And so I had to be in a space of like, Marsha, like this is a control thing. Like this is not how it works. And so that is the unsexy part. But I also know like it ebbs and flows. And there are some days where you build a relationship with yourself to go, I know I need to move on a daily basis, but what that movement looks like is going to change. Some days it's yoga, some days it's weight, some days it's a long walk, and sometimes it's a nap, and I celebrate myself for that because a past version would have never done that. So that's all part of the growth. But one of the things that you just said that I think is when it comes back to owning your power and really being in a space like detached from the outcome, your bounce back rate is if I can share anything, learning the difference between responding and reacting will save you so much energy. It's not even funny. It'll save you so much. And that will help your bounce back rate. When you're in a space of reacting, I mean, any reactors here? I was such a good reactor. Like I literally was just a fighter. I could do, every corner. And until I went, why am I doing that? Like, why am I picking every fight in order to stand up to something because that's who I was? And I'm not ashamed of that. But I also started to recognize that that's not a good use of my energy. Like I don't actually have to do that. Responding is really when I decide how I am going to respond to something. And sometimes that's like by waiting a minute and breathing and stopping and pausing and just saying, that's interesting. That one's actually not mine. That's actually not mine to fix. It's actually not mine to do anything with. And responding has saved me so much energy that helps with the bounce back. And I can't remember who I was sharing with, but it was, many people say to me they're afraid to show up and share and be who they are because of comments and things that you get in the online space. And it happens. I mean, I still get it and I share very openly with people. I had probably one of like the worst ones I've ever had last Sunday after leading an immersion for 3 days, 35 hours on Zoom with clients, and a beautiful experience. So grateful. Sit down, go to shut down my laptop, up pops this message, and I'm like, oh my God. It was just actually hurtful. Like actually quite hurtful. And I sat there and immediately I thought, okay, I don't have to respond. I don't have to do anything. What do I need to do in this moment? And you can feel the feelings, but you don't have to respond. And I think that if you're always responding to everything, especially if it's not even part of your path, then you're giving your power away everywhere, like everywhere. And so I feel like that's a big piece of it too.
Yeah, and also that it's okay that you had a reaction to it.
Yeah.
Right? Because often then it's like you're on the path and you think, almost like judging yourself for having a reaction.
You said to me, it was hilarious. Yeah.
That when Marsha told me that story, I'm like, yes! And she's like, what? I'm like, you made it! You've got some people that are really tearing you down on social media.
I was dying laughing. I was like, when you did the first yes, I'm like, did you hear me? Yeah.
But it's true. They say you haven't made it until you've got some haters. So there you go.
There you go. It's, oh my God, it's hilarious. But have your people that you can have these conversations with. I was like just wanting to share. And I just feel like if you can get to a space, feel it. I used to skip over that, right? I used to think, okay, well, no.
Yeah, like talking yourself out of it.
Yes.
Is a
be positive. Don't, no, that's not good either. You're allowed to feel everything. I often think about like, you can feel everything, but where do you choose to live, right? If you want to live in the space, this is not mine. This is Lisa Nichols. I've shared it so many times and I love this analogy. It's like you're literally driving through valleys. And if you're driving into the valley that's like victimhood and, pity party space, we're allowed to drive through. We're allowed to drive through and be angry and frustrated. But if you choose to park your car, pack by property, and live there, then that is a choice, right? And that's a choice. And so all of the feelings, we're allowed to have all of them without making them mean something about ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, you can have the feeling, you can feel it, and then, and it's also like, what's the second? You have that immediate reaction, which is just oftentimes your nervous system having that reaction, and then it's like, okay, now I get to choose.
Yeah.
But I've often worked with clients who will be like frustrated that they had the initial reaction when it's like that reaction is a human, it's part of being human, and it's okay. We're going to have those initial reactions. Then what do we do with it after?
Yeah, a detachment, and then also looking back at evidence of like, okay, well, I've been here before, I've felt this before, and I'm okay. Like, I'm okay. This is how we continue to move forward. But I really believe with some of those practices, it brings you back to owning your power. And when you're in that space, you respond and you're able to go after opportunities. Because you can, like, I think the universe is literally around us all the time with opportunities that are available. But if we're losing our power and giving it away all over the place, I think it's like going, it's right here. Here's the opportunity, but I have nothing left because I'm too angry over here. Like, how can we bring ourselves back in that
you're
space?
stuck in that, in the reactive mode, so you're not able to be like, response mode is being present, is being aware, is noticing what's showing up around you. But you can't be there if you're in your survival mode, really, is what that reactive mode is.
No, no. Look at us, right? Almost on time. We could go on forever, but I want to make sure that we can open it up for any questions that you might have. What did that stir up for anyone? Did you think or see something a little bit differently through that conversation? I can see some head nods. Yeah.
We need a few brave.
Someone out there has a question, I'm sure. Yes.
So it sounds to me like very easy the way that you describe it. But when you're in that space of feeling the negative emotion, and the idea is to maybe at some point step back and be aware of what's happening, but in reality, like, how do you get to that point? Because, like, do you have to do it many times? Or how do you really get to the point where you can actually consciously step back? Because it seems to me that I have the idea clear in my head of what I need to do. However, when situations come in my life, I still get to that point of reacting, even though I know what I have to do. So is this something that it comes with practice, or what can you suggest?
Thank you for your question. Thank you for being brave and asking it. It's a great question because first off, I promise you, we do not want this to look easy at all. It's like it's repetition. There's repetition. That's a piece of it. It is also, I would say, that pause has taken a lot of practice to be able to have that pause and to give that pause. And there have been times where I'm like, okay, I need to go for a walk right now because I cannot pull. I know if I stay in this environment, it's not going to be the best of me. Like, it's just not going to be the best of me. And so I can recognize what those feelings are. I still have major frustrating moments, but knowing like how, again, back to how many thoughts we have a day and how hard we are on ourselves and people in our life, like there's a lot of challenges that are happening on a daily basis. So space there is one thing. Recognizing it, definitely some grace, and compassion. Hard for women. Wow, we are so hard on ourselves. And so, that's another piece of it. Another, I would say, is who I surround myself with. Like, I have people in my life now that I will say, do you have a few minutes? I'm not looking for somebody to complain and bitch with. I'm actually, can you help me shift this? I can't get it myself yet. And I will openly say that. And so that's another piece of it. I don't try and do it by myself. If I actually try and do it by myself, to be honest, that's my past self. So when I see myself do that, I'm like, oh, that's my old version, and I'm not going that way. I'm actually going this way. So I catch that. And then the last thing that I use for me is when I have those days where I'm like really not proud of how I've led myself, instead of saying like I suck or this is terrible or what, I came up with a neutral, back to that's interesting, a neutral message. And I'm like, this is an off day. I'm having an off day. And I will go even to like my family. I'm like, I'm just having a really off day right now. And we know now off day means I probably need a nap. I probably need to unplug. I need to go away from like demands. Now, if I have multiple off days, that's also a reminder that I probably am not doing the rituals that I need. I'm not giving back to myself, and I'm not giving myself a fair chance. So it's a lot of self-reflection, but it's definitely, and it's a lot of repetition. A lot of repetition, I would say.
Can I add to that?
Yeah,
Because that got me really excited.
Yeah.
I was like, and that is the unsexy part. That is it.
Yeah.
It's exactly it. Like we think, oh, it should be this perfect moment. This happens.
Oh, messy.
Bounces right off. Like, oh, I'm so aware that I do not. I just see it. And it's like, that's the bullshit. That's the unsexy. You're always going to be triggered. Like life's going to happen. You're going to be like, what the just happened?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay, but now, you know, I notice it, I witness it, I'm gonna choose maybe differently, but that is the messy part. That's the part that we think everyone's got it together, and you think we've got it together. I mean, I know my family would really
Oh, yeah, no, mine
be
too.
able to back up the fact that I do not have it together all the time. At all, but it is more of a witnessing. And then you're like, okay, well, that was interesting. And then I'm going to choose how I'm going to do it. But I would say that you are doing perfect. Like you are doing it. Like that's the thing. But we think that it looks a certain way. We think that it's, unless you're an enlightened soul, and there's not a lot of them out there, we are human. We're going to have the reaction. It's just sort of like, how do you catch yourself after, and what do you choose to do? And then you said another thing, which was amazing, which is is it practice? And it's like, yes, just like everything, the mindset piece is a constant practice. There's never a time where we check off the box. It would be so nice if we could check off the box. Well, that's done. That year's over. Okay, let's move on to the next one. It's always evolving. It's always shifting. So it is a constant practice. And some days we do a better job.
Some days we're killing it. Some days we're just not.
Other days it's just not working.
No.
And that's okay. So sort of and I love that you tied in the love piece, because can we love ourselves through all of it? And that's the part that can be challenging sometimes, because we're wired. We think it should be a certain way, and the whole perfectionism piece kicks in. So being okay with doing it imperfectly.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I did. Does that help? Because
It resonated with me a lot what you said, specifically when you said the off days. I know that when I react the worst is when I don't have a good sleep, not like a good sleep, or whatever it is. I'm tired, I didn't eat well, like something. And that's when I know that something is off within me, that's why it's like.
that's a beautiful reflection to be able to look at it that way. So see how it's different in a sense, like I haven't slept well, I really haven't, I've been busy taking care of everyone else. There's been a time in life, we all have times where it's like our demands are much higher, but if we can look at it that way instead of like, I suck and I'm a terrible person, like what's the second the language starts going there, you're not even giving yourself a chance. And so that's really what it is. And personally, I've been on this journey for a long time. Please surround yourself with people who will be real and say, like, it's not easy and it's a choice. So I often look at it, I'm like, oh, this is so hard. I'm like, compared to what though? Like compared to not doing what I get to do, compared to being stuck in a space, like it's just that reflection piece. So we always get to choose.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh,
Nope.
sorry.
Yeah, okay. So I just want to kind of go back to what our friend said when she mentioned, like, she recognized she's the one that has to change and she's putting effort into doing that. How do you go about, what's the the people on the receiving end, they don't acknowledge you putting effort, or like maybe you think they should put an effort, but they're not putting an effort. I don't know if I'm explaining. It's like the devil advocate.
Where it happens, right? We, over time, depending on, but in the relationships that we're in, it can happen where we don't align necessarily with what it is that we want to work on, our values, and that's the hard part, I think, of relationships, of what can happen. But ultimately, when we speak of being in our power, it's really listening and being in a space when you are aligned and connecting with what matters to you, and then trusting that in showing up for yourself somehow it will work out, in that we can't control what other people are do, but we certainly can inspire other people in the sense of when we make choices that align and that serve us, the energy of it sort of spreads to the people around us. I'm not sure if I answered that in the right way. And Marsha, if you have something you wanted to add.
No, I think exactly what you said, and I know it's hard because especially when we start to pour a lot of work into ourselves, it's like, okay, I'm I'm getting better, I'm doing these things, and nobody's recognizing it, or they are almost resisting it sometimes, right? Like they'll resist it. It's like, why are you changing? Like, why are you changing? And it can feel really uncomfortable. And at the end of the day, it still comes down to, like, we can't control how anyone else responds, just like, they can't control how I respond. And how we lead ourselves is what matters. And the detachment piece that we can't, I can't expect them to be on the exact same journey. I know that I have had more effect in my life by not trying to get somebody else to change, by leading myself, and that has changed others in my life. And sometimes in ways I never expected it. In ways I never expected it, could never have planned for it. And I was also prepared that if it wasn't going to, that was still not on me. Like if I lead, I always think back to intention. If my intention is to lead with love, with in a beautiful aligned space, I'm doing this because I want to be a better version of me, and that can pay it forward. I can't control if somebody else, how they perceive that, because how somebody else perceives that is entirely about it's about them. Right? It really is about them. And so it's just, I believe self-leadership is everything. Personally, I believe it comes down to how do you lead yourself, and not how do you lead yourself when you're winning. How do you lead yourself in the unsexy days that are they're hard wall kicking days. How you lead yourself on those days will determine so much more in your future than the perfect days, because they just rarely exist.
Yeah, and I find sometimes you can catch yourself when you're in the convincing mode. Convincing mode is rarely works out. I don't know. But I know for me personally, part of my journey was also being willing to be who I was. For the longest time, when one of my first podcast episodes was coming out of the spiritual closet, because I also in my own home would hide, my things so that no one thought I was a little too crazy, can't be too out there. And then I did have my group of friends that I could be myself with. So there's also some of just being willing to show up as who you are, as well.
Yeah, letting yourself be seen. If you crave being seen, let yourself be seen. We all have this space that it's uncomfortable to let ourselves be seen. But I know that I wouldn't even be in this position doing this podcast, connecting with incredible women, if I didn't allow myself to be seen.
Yeah.
We often think, right, that we make decisions based on who's in our life right now, when actually what's available is way beyond that. It's just not necessarily just people who are there right now. Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
I just want to say how wonderful it was that you raised the idea of how much of our daily energy is spent on fighting against your own beliefs and your negative thoughts. Because I think it gives you space to be more compassionate to yourself, because it's an energy that you don't know that you're spending through the day, right? So as you said, you were using that first, and then what is left is what you have to deal with everything else around you. So I think we should also give credit to ourselves when we think about the work that needs to be done, because it is work, because as you said, 60,000, 80,000 thoughts that you're fighting to reprogram your brain and to react in a different form. Then on top of that, you're dealing with whatever comes your way that day. So more so need for that space, for taking care of yourself, for your rituals, just to kind of fill up that empty space that you're going to get from all the fight. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're so welcome. Did everybody find an ounce of compassion for themselves, a tiny bit more than they would have before? Perfect. Perfect. That's great.
I was going to say, where do you suggest starting? Where to start?
Great question. I love your question, Julie. No, I do. Actually, where do you start? I think that I'm going to follow my gut on this one. Is that sometimes we think we have to add more, like we have to add, I got to do these habits and add these things that are, what if there's something that you know isn't working? Like, what if you can make space and something isn't working? And it can be as simple as going, you know what, I'm on my phone like way too much a day. I'm not even giving myself time. Reading actually makes me feel good, and I don't have time for it because I'm on my phone too much. Or I really do want to meditate, but I can't find time. Okay, what needs to go? And maybe there's something simple that can go that is not serving you, that can create space. And then the other pieces, and can be really, really simple, is like, what is a thought that you know you have every single day that you know isn't serving you? Because you can't change anything without awareness. You can't change anything without awareness. And if I can share, I do this step through myself, like more than I could even imagine. Is awareness of, like, first is awareness of the thought. You have to be able to consciously interrupt your subconscious pattern that's on repeat, right? Those, like, when I'm saying that 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, you just imagine it's all day long it's going. Like, you literally have to throw a cog, you got to break the wheel in order to stop yourself and go, whoa, I didn't realize I was thinking that. So awareness is huge. Second is, like, ask yourself, like, is it true? Is it actually true? Because if you consciously ask a question to interrupt a pattern, is it true? And, you know, you might be like, well, I don't think it's true, but I can't really, like, okay. So then it's like, where is there evidence in your life that that's not true? So that's the third thing. Go look for evidence. Back to the detective again. And then how can you rewrite it in a new empowering way? Right? How can you rewrite it in a new empowering way? And there have been a lot of thoughts I had to rewrite over and over every single day, even when I didn't understand how that was going to happen. And then I use a lot of subconscious reprogramming to continually reprogram, like, how my brain, how I think, and what that looks like. But that repetition happens all the time. So if you have a thought you know that is not serving you, then that is where I would start. If I could share, like, my story started, I was a parent dealing with teen substance abuse. Not sexy. Not a sexy story, not a story anybody wanted. And I spent my life for many years trying to fix, manage, and control everything, until I got to the point where it's like, okay, that's not my choice. That's not my choice. And I'm like, okay, gotta try. I'm like, but that's not my choice. And all of a sudden it was like, choice became a word for me, hence the name of my podcast. That's literally where I live by, is choice. And so for me, I just had to stop and go, okay, that phrase is killing me. And how can I choose differently? So take away something that you know isn't working, make space for something else. I would definitely say choose things that you love doing, right? If we're saying you know, meditating, journaling, and all these things, you're like, I cannot stand a couple of those things, then don't. Just pick something you love. Because if your energy and vibration changes, you can change. And then that changes how you show up and share. Does that help? Yeah? Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I would say awareness is where everything begins. So it's like anything that you can do that will support you in cultivating that present moment awareness. And it can, I mean, I'm a meditation teacher, so I want to say meditation.
And I do this now regularly because of that, because I knew I was having a hard time doing it on my own. So I'm like, now I'm going to pour it back into myself. Yeah.
So it can look like a meditation practice, but it can also look like a walk outside. It can look like any moment where you disconnect from everything else and you come back to yourself. Like, I like to think of it as like, how can I turn down the volume on the external noise so I can turn up the volume on myself? And that does not have to be sexy. That can be anything, any moment where you take a deep breath and you just come back to you. And it's in those moments of awareness that we start to bring awareness to what is actually showing up. And that's the part that I know, for instance, with meditation can be very challenging for people, is that it means that when you are aware that you are present to what is. And sometimes we don't necessarily want to be with what is. And that's the challenging part. That's the part that requires, I think, a lot of self-love and compassion. And I like to also encourage people that it's not because something shows up for you that you have to do anything with it. So the more we cultivate presence, the more we cultivate awareness. Sometimes, the uncomfortable emotions will show up, and there's a part of us, the part of our brain that's trying to just keep us safe, wants to fix things. And then that's when we're aware, maybe something happens in our relationship, and all of a sudden we're like, breaking up with whatever it is, right? Our mind goes to the extremes because it's trying to fix. So it's an opportunity to, whenever we're present or whenever we're aware, it's like, it's not because I'm having this that I have to fix or change anything. It's okay to be with this messy, uncomfortable emotion, or maybe it's a realization that you have about something. So giving yourself that time and space to just be with it instead of trying to change it or fix it can be helpful when you're beginning, for sure. We'll add any time, but.
So good. Thank you. We have to share these. So thank you.
So good.
Thank you for listening to Spiritually Wired. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and leave a review. It really makes a big difference for the podcast. And if you're ready to dive deeper and join a soul-led community, come be a part of the Spiritually Wired membership. With weekly live lessons and a rich library of recorded classes, it's designed to support you every step of the way on your spiritual journey. We currently have a special offer where you can receive your first month for half the price. You can find a link in the show notes or come check it out at reneewalkerwellness.com. Until next time, remember to take some deep breaths. Remember that you are spiritually wired.